Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Retrofit Talks. I'm Patty D'Souza, the Public Program Curator and Digital Curator at the Building Center. I'll be the host for today's session titled Whole House Measures, Analysis, Review, and Implementation. This online talk series, part of Retrofit 23, connects professionals to discuss residential retrofit. We're here to showcase the latest research and projects in architectural practice, offering valuable case studies and solutions for retrofitting homes. An interactive Q&A session will follow today's talk. Please use the chat to leave your questions, and I'll address them after the presentation. We kindly request that you focus your questions specifically on the individual speaker and avoid making statements. The 8th event in this series will be delivered by Rachel Pickford from Sarah Wigglesworth Architects, SWA, and will focus on whole house measures used and explored in several of SWA's residential retrofit pilot schemes. Rachel will talk through SWA's analysis of a series of existing buildings and explore the different upgrade options available. She will highlight the importance of analyzing the building in the process of developing future-proofed homes, while providing a thought-provoking overview of what is a whole house retrofit. And now, over to Rachel Pickford.
Hi, hello. I'm really excited to be here today and part of the Building Centre Retrofit 23 talks. Today I'll be speaking through whole house measures, future-proofing low-density housing stock at scale. I'll be doing this through presenting case studies which we've analysed, reviewed and implemented whole house retrofits on different projects. So just to give you a little bit of an overview about who I am, I'm a project architect at SWA and have been for 2 years. During this time, I've been the project architect on a pilot project for service family accommodation in Richmondshire, which seeks to meet NFIT accreditation. I've also assisted and been part of a small project team on a social housing decarbonisation project, which is in Warwick. At SWA, we are an award-winning design practice which specialises in low energy buildings and sustainable communities. We work in housing, educational, cultural and community sectors, both in new build projects and retrofit projects. As a practice, we believe in a people-centred approach, which acknowledges, rectifies and minimises the social, environmental and economic impacts of our work through the life cycle of every project. In summary, we believe that it is important to put people at the heart of the project, both in terms of how they use the space, i.e. through engaging communities, or how end users will interact with the technical staff. So today I'm going to be talking through 2 key case studies where this approach has been implemented. The first case study I'll be looking at is Stock Orchard Street, which is a bespoke retrofit project where we learnt a number of key lessons. We learnt lessons about pushing boundaries in terms of the brief, and we asked questions about where we could improve, not just the fabric improvements, but the space to create a better space. But also we learned key lessons about working with a building with character and ensuring that a high architectural quality finish was achieved. The second case study I'll be looking at is a pilot project for service family accommodation, where a number of these key lessons from the case study 1 have been applied. So starting off on Stock Orchard Street. Stock Orchard Street, or as it's commonly known as the Strawberry House, is both an office to us as a practice, but also the home of Sarah Wigglesworth and Jeremy Till. Sarah and Jeremy designed, project managed and developed the site, and the building was completed back in 2021. At the time of completion, the building was a green exemplar, which well exceeded the 1996 building regulations, which were current at the time. The building sought to use natural materials and considered the life cycle of the materials which were used. Things like gabion walls are used, which have recycled material in. Straw insulation is used to insulate the house. Padded cloth cladding is used, and you can see in these photos is used for the office space, where the life cycle of this has been carefully considered to allow easy repair if needed. Elsewhere in the building, there's sandbags, and there's also railway sleepers, which provide window frames for the office building. As well as considering the materiality, a lot of thought was put in on how we can optimize the energy of the building. So things like rainwater is collected from the roof and used for toilets and the washing machine. Natural ventilation is also used, and at the centre of the scheme, there's a garden which allows Jeremy and Sarah to grow their own vegetables. And there's also a greenery to the house. So over time, and with the developments of the green movement, we sought to do a retrofit on the project. So in 2016, with a wealth of knowledge about the pleasures and pitfalls of living and working at Stock Orchard Street, we appointed an Inhabit, who are now known as CODA, to undertake a thorough assessment of how the building was performing in terms of comfort and energy demand. This analysis entailed kind of both thermal energy and also air tests. We also work with Inhabit to develop a PHPP model, which looked at the thermal performance and the energy demands. You can see from the tables and on the right-hand side of this page that it's showed quite clearly that a lot of the losses were due to kind of heating of both the office and the home space. And this analysis kind of culminated in a pre-retrofit and post-retrofit performance analysis, which was then culminated into this table here, which sought to look at the different measures which could be applied and how they would impact energy, comfort, and also a cost. This table enabled Sarah and Jeremy to help make decisions on what measures to be implemented to work with their budgets. This sketch here shows the different eco-improvement measures which were applied externally to the building. They sought to improve airtightness, reduce thermal bridging, and improve ventilation, as well as improving solar control. So things like shading were installed to the south-facing windows, as well as kind of external blinds were installed to these windows as well. And then the thermal performance was improved through incorporating things like insulation to the soffit of the ground floor living space, as well as replacing the roof lights to this link. This link, although it's a very small area of the house, through the analysis, we found that it was losing 8% of the overall heating through this space. So I'm going to look at two key details. The first being the undercroft soffit. You can see from the thermal imaging that the existing beams and columns were having a lot of heat loss, and they were kind of cold bridges in the existing design. Historically, before the retrofit, there was only a kind of slim zone of insulation below the beams, and the columns themselves are moment columns, so directly attached to the beams themselves. This meant we were slightly limited in how we could improve the thermal performance, but we sought to install a layer of insulation below the soffit, which worked both with the existing architectural character of this banding to the top of the soffit, but it also allowed us to think of ways in which we could improve the performance of that undercroft space, which acts as both as a garden store for Sarah and Jeremy, but also as our office bike store. So we sought to incorporate lighting within the space. The second key detail that I'm going to look at is the hallway link. So as mentioned on the diagram, this area was losing around 8% of the overall heating, and even though it's a kind of small area, and the thermal analysis showed that it was kind of allowing a lot of heat to be emitted from the building. This image to the left shows the existing link, and you can see that it's got a large polycarbonate roof light, and the original idea was this space was meant to be a kind of in-between greenhouse space that felt that was lit quite by a lot of natural light coming from above. As part of the retrofit process, we were keen to make sure that the existing character was maintained, and so we introduced roof lights in key areas, as well as replacing the floor to a glazed floor, which now enables the space to still be light-filled, but while also enabling us to create a more thermally robust detail through insulating up around the roof light and also installing a very airtight line around these roof lights as well. As well as the eco improvements that were installed on the scheme, we sought to push beyond the brief and provide a holistic retrofit. So we took the top opportunity to create an environment that would enable Sarah and Jeremy to age well in place as well. And this really focused on the health and well-being of the occupants. Key measures were implemented, such as installing handrails to the guarding around the stair. We also looked at the kitchen and sought to move the oven up so that there was no need to bend down to use that. At ground floor, a second kitchen was installed, which would enable a carer to stay in the property if ever needed and have access to their own facilities. And then the bathrooms were addressed as well. So the shower was looked at to provide a flush, easy access shower, as well as grab rails being installed around the bath. So how have we applied the whole house retrofit approach to our projects at scale? This page shows some images of existing photos from our service family accommodation pilot retrofit. The pilot retrofit looks initially at 9 homes, which these photos show. But the intention is that as it's a pilot scheme and that it will be rolled out around the wider garrison. The homes themselves are quite simple 2-story dwellings, but you can see from the photos that there's some patchwork, brickwork, and that's because previously the homes were divided in 2 and they've already undergone their own kind of prehistoric retrofit of combining these previously 2 dwellings into 1 dwelling, and that meant that each of the homes have a constraint of a party wall, which is already a party wall, but a historic party wall within the centre of the property. In a similar way to Stock Orchard Street, a key initial part of our design development was to work with CODA to analyse the existing building, as well as conduct surveys to see how the existing buildings were performing. The image on the left-hand side is CODA's analysis of the existing U values and performance of the building, and the right-hand side images are thermal imaging done of the property. And you can see that, as well as kind of the elements that we would expect there to be cold bridging or happening. So around the windows, there's also cold spots happening in the existing cavity wall, which we have sought to address. So in a similar way to Stock Orchard Street, the analysis of the existing enabled us to table improvement analysis, which we worked with CODA on. There were different options put forward, and initially the brief sought to meet the PAS 2035 principles, but through the improvement analysis, the brief changed and the scheme now seeks to meet NFIT accreditation. That means there's quite a robust need to provide a really tight air tightness line, but as well as that, we're improving the thermal performance by installing a T-cozy insulating surround to the building, so insulating both the external walls but above the existing roof. New windows and doors are to be provided, and MVHR air source heat pumps and PVs are looking to be included within the scheme. As well as the fabric improvements, we worked with the client to get a brief in terms of how they wanted to improve the homes for the residents beyond the environmental improvements. And one thing that came out of our discussions were that the intention was not to just improve the homes so that they perform better, but address the fact that at the moment the row of terrace doesn't have any kind of individuality, and the client was keen for us to review the existing characters to provide different typologies of how each home could be externally insulated to provide a variation within a row of terrace. So that led us to initially investigating the existing elevations and the design features that are present. So things like horizontal datums and vertical alignments, as well as elevational details on the homes. We reviewed this, and then with the brief in mind to create different typologies, provided 3 different variants of how the elevation could be treated using a mixture of render and brickwork, as well as looking to replace the windows so that there's less mullions, but also play with the paneling below the windows to make them feel bigger in scale. As well as the elevational treatments, we were keen to provide new entrances to each of the homes, which gave a sense of each home feeling individual, and that was done through incorporating canopy, and also each home has now their own kind of brick letterbox entrance area. In developing the elevations, we also considered where the kit was going to be installed, and these homes are temporarily occupied, and so there's a risk that any building occupants won't kind of completely fully understand the kit that we're putting in. So we worked with the client to see where this could best be located, and it was agreed that it could be located in this rear external store, which would enable the client to come and maintain the MVHR without disrupting any residents. And then these are just some elevational studies showing the different typologies applied along a row of terraces. One of the considerations with moving from past 2035 principles to ensuring the NFIT accreditation can be achieved was consideration on the airtightness line. And that meant that, as well as kind of considering where this sat, it meant considering key junctions, and one of the key junctions was the roof. And we worked with CODA and also a QS to present options and different cost impacts. And although it may have allowed cost savings to insulate internally within the loft space, it was agreed to provide this T-cozy effect by insulating above, as it reduces the complications of the airtightness line, as it enables it to be fully it removes the need of tricky junctions around the existing joists, and to run up the existing brick wall and then above the existing joists and below where that new insulation line is sitting. It also meant that there was an easier solution around the party wall detail where you're stepping, as that line could run continuously along. So, as well as that pilot project, we've worked on other pilot projects where this was a decarbonisation project, and we looked at 50 homes in Warwick. In a similar way to Catterick, we sought to see where additional details could be used externally, where we're externally insulating the properties to provide a better entrance area to each of the residents. We also worked with the client to see how MVHR could potentially be incorporated into the homes, but without the benefit of kind of residents being able to leave, which is like the Catterick project. And then the second project and kind of last case study is the retrofit of artist studios. So it's not a residential retrofit, but it's a retrofit of artist studios in London. And as we work with the client to see how the performance of the envelope could be improved to create warmer spaces for artists, but we also sought ways in which the proposal could work with the client's commercial business structure by providing additional artist spaces up at the roof. So this diagram here and also the post retrofit image shows that we put an extension to the roof, which enabled the additional artist accommodation to be installed. So it wasn't just questioning how we could improve the building, but also improve the business plan for the client. So again, trying to see how we could go beyond the fabric improvements. So that concludes my talk for today, and I'm going to stop sharing now and pass back to Patty.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now on to the Q&A. How was the thermal performance of the different baseline building elements determined? This is from Matthew.
So with I'm kind of assuming that that's kind of in general against both case studies. So with the Catterick project, the different thermal performance was reviewed against different baselines. So we worked with CODA, and an initial step in the process was reviewing how different wall thicknesses or different insulation could be added to provide different U values. And that was reviewed against the different certification requirements. And from looking at the different options, the client then chose which option they wanted to proceed with. And because in the end we've gone with trying to achieve the NFIT certification, we've gone with the kind of most kind of thickest insulation we can provide to the external walls in hope to kind of improve the U values as greatly as possible.
Next question, Chris is asking, firstly, great presentation, thank you. And then she says, I wondered if there's any data regarding the energy savings at the service family accommodation after the retrofit has been completed.
So the retrofit hasn't yet been completed. We're at stage 4, and because we haven't at the moment got any kind of post occupancy because it's not yet gone to site. Which, you know, hopefully when it does get to that point, it'd be great to get that occupancy data to see that we are achieving what we've set out to achieve as well.
So Henrietta Williams says, thank you for the interesting talk. I'm looking to retrofit and insulate a grade 2 listed building in Lambeth. A planning application will be needed, but I'm wondering if you have any experience of getting planning through on insulating listed buildings, and if it's likely to be supported.
We haven't had a planning granted for a listed building. We have, as a practice, worked on kind of very initial phases of how you could retrofit homes which are kind of in a conservation area, and so planning wise are a bit more sensitive. They come with kind of different constraints about how to insulate internally if you're trying to avoid putting anything externally. But I think, I think it becomes a whole kind of different way of working with the historic character to try and make sure that you're working with the existing character, but also with the planning constraints. And kind of obviously internally insulating has implications on the floor area as well. And the junctions become a bit trickier to try and achieve, but it sounds like a really exciting project.
Yeah, to add on that, we have a few talks, we have one talk that mentions or that talks about heritage buildings. And if you'd like to, Rachel and the audience, to watch it, you can watch it on our website. And on to the next questions. From Jude, she says, I might have missed this. What was the most effective in terms of performance improvement? What was the most effective method for residential and the design studio?
So in terms of Catterick, so the service family accommodation project, it was kind of all of the systems together are really helping provide the fabric improvements. It's very much that the external wall installation is providing a massive benefit, but without the kind of roof insulation as well, we wouldn't be able to achieve the thermal performance needed. So it's kind of not just one thing that we could install on a project without kind of considering the whole house. One of the kind of key benefits of externally insulating the roof means that we are going into the next phase of the project with a little bit more reassured about how we can achieve that air tightness line. And if we were trying to kind of not raise the roof up and insulate internally, it would be kind of even more of a project risk about how to achieve that. Yeah, and then with the Stock Orchard Street project, the link, because it was, even though it's such a small area, the fact that it was losing 8% of the heat from that space, addressing that one area had a substantial benefit to the projects.
Thank you, Rachel, for answering the questions and for your presentation. And thank you to our audience for attending the webinar. It will be online shortly. And to learn more about the Retrofit 23 exhibition and its public program, you can visit our website. We have upcoming talks in September, but we want you to mark your calendars and join us for tomorrow. We have our last in-person event for this summer program. It's an event called Retrofit Meets Community Action. Do come if you're in London, and do visit our website and look at the upcoming events in September onwards. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Rachel.